Well, now that we're past our technical difficulties, I'm ready to fire off some bad jokes and not make any puns, but also watch the Magic apparently win a basketball game in Los Angeles against one of the best teams in the league. They they didn't even have Josh Majette at this point. They had already let him. They waived him. They waived him just before the game or the day before the game to sign Gary Clark to his first 10-day contract. Yeah, I think that there was obviously a lot of questions that we still had to ask and still had to answer. Really, we're coming off them recently losing Jonathan Isaac for what appeared to likely be the rest of the season with his knee injury. They were already down Alfred Minu after he tore his meniscus, and then like all the dominoes just seemed to be falling right then. Was banged up and honestly not playing very well. Aaron Gordon was dealing with the Achilles soreness at the time, and a lot of us were talking about the fact that the Magic needed to sit him down for an extended period until he was healthy. There a little bit, yeah, and also, I mean, at this point, this was before Terrence Ross really was starting to get things rolling. I mean, he didn't really start to get going consistently until about the start of February. So really, there were so many unknowns with this team. We didn't know how they were going to react because they were still about a week and a half removed from Jonathan Isaac's injury, and they were still really feeling things out. I mean, before this game in Los Angeles, Aaron Gordon had just missed the game in Phoenix, which they fell apart in, and then came back in the win against the Kings that Monday night. Florida, yep. Of That was a very bad final possession, but the really, I mean, you look at it, the last, after the Suns loss, yes, they beat the Kings, yes, they beat the Lakers, but the wheels were completely off the wagon there for the Magic. There was so many things going poorly, and it was just a really rough stretch, which I think we've come accustomed to with this team, is expecting a period where they're maybe not as good as they possibly could be. But this one felt like it could be spelling the end of their season a little bit with how many injuries they were dealing with. Yeah, and they had a big lead in that game, and then even the Kings win, they had a double-digit lead there late, and they fell apart and had to make that play late to win the game. Yeah, I would agree, and I think that we've had periods where we've seen guys. I mean, Evan Fournier's had a few games where he's just completely taken over and gotten whatever he wants late. Aaron Gordon, especially the last month or so before the sudden shutdown a couple weeks ago, was really starting to come around. And I don't know if he was reaching that star level, but he was, I think, a lot closer than he was even dating back to this Lakers game. When he obviously made some plays late for them, but he was just, it felt like he was finally starting to come around from his really, I would say, concerning early season struggles. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that scapegoat, right? That is somebody that everyone kind of feels is easy to blame for the struggles. And I think with Evan, obviously we've seen what he can do over the past 5, 6 seasons, and maybe this team can only go so far with him, but at the same time, the importance of what he brings skill set wise is, I mean, I feel like has been put in the forefront a little bit this season because he's having one of his best shooting seasons of his career, and he's just he brings the spacing that offense so desperately needs, right? Sure. Right. And I think that also a lot of the offensive surge can or maybe not a lot, but at least some of it can be attributed to Aaron Gordon, looking more comfortable, and also Terrence Ross, which I touched on a little bit already. I mean, Ross had really started to turn things around, and we were looking at the guy who I think you could make a good argument for the Six Man of the Year award last season still. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's easy to make Evan Fournier that scapegoat, because yes, they've had some success without him, and I do agree that maybe he does like to play at a slower pace, which is okay. I'm still not completely sold that this team is best suited playing super fast. Sure, they've got guys who are good on the break and then on the secondary fast break, but because ultimately they're going to have to slow things down. They can't play at that breakneck pace like the 7 seconds or less Suns did or the Rockets do now. Right. And I think one of the important things also to note when we're talking about pace, it isn't necessarily just how fast they get the ball up the court. It right, yeah. The number I think a lower number of possessions where they're being more efficient and getting into their sets quickly, and you don't have Markel Fultz or DJ Augustine or whoever your ball handler may be um, dribbling the ball for the first 10 to 12 seconds of the shot clock before you get into any action. I mean, you need to be up and getting into an action in 6, 7 seconds. I think that's when you would see that this team is the most successful offensively. I I think they are. Um, and I will say that we've seen how big of a talent gap there is. I think with some of these guys that like a BJ Johnson or Josh McJett or even Emil Jefferson, who has made his way onto the roster for the entire season. Of the difference in the talent level for those kind of fringe guys and guys that really should be down in the G League. Um, and it's just tough for them, I think, to get the consistent minutes when they're with the actual uh, the Magic, instead of being down in Lakeland. Um, so I think that we'll maybe know a little bit more. I know this is maybe a little bit of a cop out, but I think we'll know a little bit more next year. And obviously the circumstances are so different now with everything that's going on in the world. Um, but with how Chumo Kiki looks next year, I think will tell us a lot because he spent that time down there. Sure, he's been rehabbing, but just being around the team and seeing how they run things. Yeah, I think that will tell us a lot about how they're using the G League and how efficiently they're using it too. Because again, I think it's tough to really get a gauge from seeing a guy like a BJ Johnson or Josh Jett getting these spot minutes here or there. Mhm. You have to make the most of those minutes when you're given those minutes. Cliff has been asked this. I who knows how many times at this point. How he's going to handle his rotation with a certain guy out or with a certain guy coming back, whatever it may be. And Cliff has hammered in like, he likes a 9-man rotation, and his reasoning I think is very sound. He wants to get guys to where they're in a good rhythm, to where they can, they know what they need to be doing out there for the unit that they're playing with. Now, maybe you could question some of his decision making. I don't think that this is a slight on Michael Carter Williams, because Carter Williams has given them very good minutes by and large when he plays. But maybe he's not the guy that you roll out there at the two guard in the second lineup. There's, I think, questions that can be asked, but I think overall, he makes pretty sound decisions, and he goes with guys that you can trust, and that's the biggest thing I think for NBA coaches is the fact that you have to have trust in your guys that they're going to be A, in the right positions, but B, you can't be nitpicking every little thing in every single game. If you don't have trust, then what are you doing? Yeah, I agree. I think that that is what gets Clifford in trouble a little bit is his reluctancy to make those changes when he needs to. Right. You know, I think that there are times when we've looked at each other, or if we're sitting in different parts of the arena, we've texted each other or whatever it may be during games and said, "Hey, this is where he needs to bring back X player early, or like he needs to get so and so out because they're bleeding points." Yes, the as BJ Johnson hits a three and promptly leads to a angry Frank Vogel timeout, which I think we saw a hand a handful of those. Mhm. Right, and I think that around this time, you and I were having this discussion on Twitter or somewhere that we need to be seeing him be willing to take some more chances here. Like get one of these guys that you don't know what they're going to give you necessarily, and throw them in there. Like see if they can give you a spark. And I think we saw him be willing to do that some when they signed Gary Clark. Obviously, they had to do that some. Um, but also, you want to see him do that more. I think. Hmm. I think I'm going to give it a buzzer. Um, yeah, I'm a little disappointed in that. I will say that the David probably doesn't get the love that he deserves for uh, for this because this is the best segment I think during Magic games, especially listening to him lobby for some of these. Um, He does. While we're at this, I guess since we're on the topic of number one picks, um, you know, we're looking at we see a few weird things I think in this game. What's weirder, seeing Dwight Howard wearing 39 or somebody on the Magic wearing 12 playing against Dwight? Yeah, it does. Um, and yeah, I think that after a certain time, an amount of time in the league, and you become accustomed to somebody. Oh, and there was Aaron Gordon, casual, yeah, windmill, yeah. Um, hold on. They gave him a bell for that. Oh, that was week. That was a week one truck. It is. But touching on us hoping that we're giving you something to distract you from everything. Obviously, we're thinking about everybody and hoping that everyone's staying as safe as possible during this time. I mean, it's so weird for all of us, honestly. And we're all trying to find things that will get our minds off of it and pass the time. So just we're hoping everyone's staying safe out there. Taking all the necessary precautions that you can, and just be safe and know that sooner, hopefully, rather than later, everything will begin to normalize for us all. Season, yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we've touched on a little bit so far is the fact that they're playing the Lakers. They're playing, one of the most famous franchises in league history and one of the best teams in the league today. Um, and it looks like the guys are all playing up to another level, right? The energy is a little bit higher. They're really crisp with their movement, and they don't seem to be missing a lot of assignments defensively, which I think we've seen be a problem for them throughout the season. It is not. Yeah. Um, Now, obviously, we're going to see them kind of go through a little bit of a lull here soon that lets the Lakers, climb back in it a little bit before halftime. But, overall, I think it's good to see them have this attention to detail and the fact that they're playing up as much as they are, right? Um, just because it gives you that glimpse of, okay, this is what this team can be. And the fact that they're doing it with how banged up they are, and they have guys like B.J. Johnson, Gary Clark, who are contributing to them and their success already. I mean, that's huge. Hmm. Yeah, I think that we're seeing him be more confident and more comfortable out there. That was something uh, that was really big, I think, for him was just getting the reps in because he missed so much of last season. You know, yes, Steve Clifford and a lot of his teammates have raved about the work that he put in just being on the bench, but being on the bench doesn't, fully simulate everything. That doesn't get you up to game speed, and it doesn't, get you those actual reps. Obviously, that you need to get more comfortable. I think that we've seen Mo struggle through parts of the season, mostly earlier in the year, and I think that's when a lot of people were starting to call for Ken Birch to maybe come in and take some of the minutes for a short period of time, because I felt like that might give the Magic their best chance to win games. But we've seen Mo, with the continued trust that Steve Clifford has put into him, has continued to improve. I still think that he's a couple years away from, being ready to play those, you know, 30, 35 minutes a game and really contribute. But the progress that he's made is really important, I think. What is Nikola Vucevic still the best player on this team? I think the best player on the team, at least when he was healthy this season, was Jonathan Isaac, and I don't know if it was close. Mhm. It changes so many dynamics um, of things that have happened that have kept momentum going for the Magic or have helped build some of the momentum that we've seen um, in this quarter so far. Yeah, they do. I think that maybe we're still a year or two away from him being the clear cut guy. Um, but we saw a lot in the short time that we did get to see him this season. Obviously, we know what he can do defensively, but we even saw him getting more comfortable on the offensive end, which I think was really big. I think it was two forces meeting, and there was a negative impact, but one is the only one that moved. The other one just kept going, and the one that kept going was Mark Huffles. He might have gotten away with a little bit of a push off there, but that's not. Yeah, yeah. It kind of feels like that's the play a little bit that really starts to open up Markel Fultz in this game. I think, and we'll start seeing that. Yep, we'll find. I think that we need to talk some about Fultz and what we've seen this season. Obviously, we went into the year with it being kind of a relative unknown of what we could expect from him. Um, obviously he had the retooled jump shot and he just hadn't really played. Um, how would you grade Fultz's season so far and what you've seen from him? Yeah, I think that by and large, it's been a very successful season for him. I was a little bit surprised that he got put into the starting lineup as soon as he did. I thought that there was a chance that he could get to start at some point this season, but I wouldn't have picked 5 games in. On our podcast, Do You Believe in Magic? Our friends Aaron Goldstone, Will Ogburn, and I discussed this a little bit before the season, and I think we set the over/under on starts for Fultz this season at 10 games. We thought that he might get a spot start here or there. Maybe he would take over later in the season, but I don't think any of us really expected it when when it happened. And I think that really did help the team a lot. Obviously, he's had his ups and downs, which is expected. Uh, he was, yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that Markel can still be a really solid starting point guard in this league, even if his jump shot doesn't come along a ton. You know, he's going to keep defenses honest with his pace and with his ability to get to the rim and his strength. Um, and plus his passing, I mean, it opens up so much for everyone else. So I think that even if he's maybe, if you see Fultz topping out at like a 16, 6, and 4 a night guy, like, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing.
Which could be a problem. So let me fix that. Um, I think maybe now, hopefully the most of this might be unusable now. So thanks to whoever commented to say that I was not coming up on audio. This is very much an experiment. This whole restreaming thing. So I apologize if there were any hiccups or technical glitches. Um, so I think everyone who's been kind of participating with this experiment and trying to bear with us here. Hopefully we can do this again sometime in the future. So hopefully now it's working. Hopefully now everything's working. If not, again, I appreciate it very much, and appreciate everyone for bearing with us here on this experiment again. So thanks JT Money for watching and listening. If only just to Zach, who has some great opinions. So definitely listen to him. The score as we're ending the first getting near the first half here, 63-52. The Magic hold the lead. LeBron James starting to make a little bit of a push. We were just talking about Markel Fultz and his season, as the Magic at this point are at the midpoint of the season, obviously we're coming up now on the end of the first half, and again I'm going to come back to you because we do want to focus a little bit on the game, not always talk about the big picture items, and we do know there's a lot of game left, and yes, we do know what's going to happen, but overall, what this being the first time you're watching this game, what are your impressions of the game so far? Like how would you rate how the Magic have played?
I would say that this is one of their best halves of basketball all season. You know, they've been like I said a little bit earlier. It feels like they're really locked in on both ends. They're getting into sets quickly offensively. They're moving crisp without the ball, and they're finding good looks on a lot of possessions. And defensively, really, we're looking at a team that looks comfortable out there together. They look a little bit like the team that was, one of the top-rated defenses at the end of last season. And if Terrence Ross had just dunked that on JaVale McGee, that might have actually blown the roof off of Staples.
It might have. I'm gonna have to warn you. There are a couple more dunks at that basket that are very similar to that one coming up later on in the second half. Lakers making their run now. They're down 65-57 with 20 seconds left in the second quarter after Troy Daniels hits a three. So we've seen this Magic team struggle a little bit with leads this year. Steve Clifford would probably tell me that leads in the NBA don't really matter. It's the score at the end of the game that matters. And obviously every team in the NBA has a run. It's never a free reign to get to a win in the NBA. Every win in the NBA is difficult. Should we be concerned with how the Magic, play with leads in general? Obviously, we talked a little bit about it earlier. If people could hear me or not, we talked about it a little bit earlier that the Magic blew late leads against the Kings, blew late leads against the Suns. They, in previous games that they've replayed on Fox Sports Florida here, they lost a late lead to the Sixers and nearly lost that game in January. They had some ups. They've had plenty of ups and downs this year where they've struggled to close out games. Is that something that should be concerning in the bigger picture?
Yeah, I think it's definitely concerning that we're looking at a team that's struggled as much as they have playing with leads. As I was saying, I think it's something that you touched on earlier was the fact that this is still such a young team, right? You take away the 5 games that they got last season in the playoffs, and the only guys that have any, real playoff experience on this team are Terrence Ross. And so I'm not saying that, playoff experience is everything, but this is still such a young team that hasn't played in a ton of meaningful games still. Yes, they had a few at the end of last season. They've had a few this season, but they're still trying to learn and figure things out.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like I always have to tell this to people. This is still such an incredibly young team. This is a team that is still like everyone's under 20. Everyone of importance is still under 25, 26 years old. DJ Augustine is the oldest player at 31, 32. Al-Farouq Aminu, I think, is the only other player of consequence in his 30s. Nikola Vucevic might be 30. I get ages wrong, so I don't want to say that too definitively. But this Magic team is still so extremely young. It's impossible not to kind of sit here and say that they're fully formed, or that this is the final version of this Magic team. They've still got a lot of development and growth to go.
Nikola Vucevic is 29. He'll turn 30 in October. Al-Farouq Aminu will also turn 30 later this year. He's not even 30. So the only player on this roster that is over 30 years old is DJ Augustine, who will turn 33 later this season.
Wow.
Everyone else on the roster was born between 1990 and 1998.
That is. I still feel like you always have to hit that pause button and just remind yourself that this team is still incredibly young, that this team is still in its development phase. They're not a finished product yet. It feels like they should be, because I think a lot of fans still view this as year 7 or 8 of a rebuild, and they want things to happen quicker. But to me, this is still very much year 3. This is Jeff Weltman's third year with the team. They essentially made the playoffs in 2 of those 3 years, and obviously I think that the next step is the big step for this team. Is figuring out how to get out of the first round, how to get home court advantage. That's the big step that that Jeff Weltman has to navigate and has to figure out how to get this team to that point.
And that's a tough step for teams to take. I mean, we've seen some of these teams take 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons to take that step. I mean, you look at a team like the Raptors, right? They were kind of hanging around the 7th, 8th spot for 2 or 3 years, and then they got up to the 3, 4, maybe the 5 spot before, and then they made that splash and they got Kawhi Leonard, and then they hit with another gem in Pascal Siakam, and then they acquired Marc Gasol, and they won their championship. This isn't something that's built overnight, which is, I think, one of the biggest problems that some people have is they just expect it to be like this. We saw it, before with Shaq and Penny, how they were two generational talents that clicked and they were able to do it like that. We saw it with Dwight. Obviously, even with Dwight, it took a couple of years, and it took adding the Hedo Turkoglu, the Rashard Lewis piece, Jameer Nelson really coming into things. It took the addition of these pieces. Like, this doesn't happen overnight. Yes, we're year whatever of the official post Dwight rebuild, but like you were saying, we're only year 3 of Jeff Weltman and John Hammond, and I think by and large they've done a fine job. If you ask me, the only move that I'm really questioning right now is how they handled the draft last year, taking Chuma Okeke.
Yeah.
And that is just because I think that you look at some of the guys that were there, they could have taken somebody that could have made an impact this season.
I think as far as Jeff Weltman goes, I have 2 criticisms of his tenure to this point. The first is I think that they have done a poor job maximizing their late first and second round picks. I agree with Weltman that you don't want to have a team that's too young and that has too many young players. And so, like, trading Anzes Pasechnitz or taking Anzes Pasechnitz and not using that 25th pick in his first year, that draft was a little screwy for them because they just come in, like, they were late in the process. That's forgivable. But Wesson Wonder's been a nice player, and I think that's good. But taking Melvin Frazier right after that, someone who's essentially projected to be the same player, and having him not contribute, I think, was a little bit of a poor choice. And even on that front, taking Chuma Okeke, I get what they were trying to do. I think there were cap considerations and why they ultimately went that direction and did what they did with him. But I agree, they could have gotten something that could have helped them this year. I felt like it was very important that they do get a player that could help them because of their cap situation. And then, while I get the rationale behind signing Al-Farouq Aminu, that was clearly not the most immediate need that the Magic had. And obviously, it's hard to judge Aminu too harshly. He wasn't playing well, but he just hadn't played enough to really make any firm conclusions about where he fits or what he could have done for this team. But very clearly, the Magic needed they needed a shooting.
They needed a shooter.
And they got a player who, I get why they went after Aminu. I think it wasn't an illogical choice. But for a team that didn't have a lot of cap room, that needed some cap flexibility, tying yourself to a 3-year deal to a player like Aminu, a little bit of a tough sell. And so Weltman overall, great job. Hiring Clifford, great job. Getting the contracts that he got for Vucevic and Gordon, great job. We'll see what he does with Evan Fournier this offseason or next offseason or whenever Fournier hits free agency. But those are big. That's a big test for Weltman. But certainly, not an A+ tenure, I would say, from a decision making standpoint. And this is just even before getting into results.
No, but I mean, we're still looking at, probably when you really get into the nitty gritty of it, we're probably looking at a strong B, sure. A B+ for how they've handled it. Because even when you look at some of the more questionable moves, I do agree. I think they could have maximized their second round picks a little bit better. But again, it's so tough, especially the year that they had the 2 first rounders and the 2 second rounders, right, when they came in, was you can't add too many rookies at one time if you want to make that progress.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's going to lend us into the next question is do the Magic use their draft pick this year? I mean, you look at where they're drafting at 15 or 16. There are lots of good young shooters that I think fit the Magic's eye, to be honest, in this year's draft. If I'm the Magic, maybe I think about trying to move up a few spots to make sure I get my guy. But I think if you're drafting at 15 or 16, the Magic have options to get a quality player in this year's draft. But again, do you want to be that young? At some point, yes. You can't be satisfied being the 7 or 8 seed. You've got to find a way to take a step forward. And the best way for that is still internal development. It's still Aaron Gordon getting better. It's still Jonathan Isaac getting better. It's still Markelle Fultz getting better. But at a certain point, you can't keep adding young players. You got to maybe consolidate some of those into the veteran you're hoping to get.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they probably use their pick this season. It's like you were saying, there's going to be guys who fit a need for them right there, right? And then you also look at it. Evan Fournier has the potential to be a free agent. Melvin Frazier has a team option. I believe Wes Iwundu has the opportunity to be a free agent. And Michael Carter Williams will be a free agent. DJ Augustine will be a free agent. There are definitely holes that they have to fill there, or that you at least want to take a guy that could potentially come in and make an impact and fill a hole if you end up losing one or more of those
sure.
guys.
Our good pal Adam Papagiorgio hopping on here comments, people need to calm down about Weltman Hammond. They've been overall fine considering where we were before. Fultz alone grants you leniency. And of course, we mentioned all the great moves that Weltman and Hammond have made and failed to mention the Markelle Fultz trade, which I do think was an appropriate risk and a very brilliant move for the Magic. Obviously, a huge deal.
Right, and that at the time that was the deal that you kind of had to make if you were the Magic, right? They gave up a guy who was pretty much a lame duck, who they probably weren't going to bring back, who had overall been disappointing, and you get a guy back who has this potential. Even if you get a guy who's a low end starter, that's a good deal for the Magic,
for sure.
And that was definitely a move that they had to take. And honestly, you look at another move that they made last season around the same time was signing Michael Carter Williams to the 10-day. Carter Williams, while he definitely has his shortcomings, which have been well documented throughout his career, he made such a big impact on the team last season and has continued to do so this season.
And he's, Steve Clifford cannot say enough good things about Michael Carter Williams. He is a guy that I think the Magic really trust.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely important. And Carter Williams is that guy that will come in. He'll just make those energy plays. He reminds me a little bit of a Michael Petrus type. Petrus came in and made some of those small plays that really gave you some energy. Obviously, Petrus was a little bit different with what he brought to you because he was a better shooter than Carter Williams is. But they're both good energy guys that have really made an impact with the second unit.
Yeah, and kind of rehashing, because apparently my mic was off for the first half there, but rehashing what we talked about early on, that Steve Clifford, I think a fair criticism of him is about his rotations and some of his decisions about whether to stick with players or what lineup combinations to use. But Steve Clifford, if you have his trust, you're going to get an opportunity. And like Michael Carter Williams, almost immediately, he had Steve Clifford's trust, and obviously that enabled him to get into the rotation, and he made good on that. And I think one thing that Steve Clifford is really good at is once he finds a rotation that works, he maximizes it. And really, I think the struggle for Clifford, at least, has been that initial search for the right rotation and the right playing groups. And he gives everything the chance to succeed or fail. He gives everything ample opportunity to succeed or fail. But once he finds the right group, he makes the most of that group because he's such a detail-oriented coach.
He is, and Troy Daniels' foot was on the damn line.
It was. So they took a point off, I hope.
They did.
There we go. They
No,
did
they
not
didn't.
because of the NBA. But since we're talking about that, let's give some halftime stats here since we're live watching this game. We don't want to talk too much, so we're not going to talk about James Ennis quite yet. He's off in the distant future. I mean, who knows? Who knows what the Magic are going to do at the trade deadline?
What's a James Ennis?
I believe it is a wooden ship used in the Civil War. But the Magic leading at halftime, 65-58. They've got 10 points from Markelle Fultz, 9 points from B.J. Johnson in 11 minutes and 15 seconds, 8 points each from Gary Clark, Terrence Ross, and Aaron Gordon. Nikola Vucevic with 7 points on 3 for 8 shooting. Wes Iwundu with 11 to lead the Magic. So if I would have told you that Wes Iwundu was the leading scorer for the Magic in Los Angeles against the Lakers, would you believe the Magic were up by 7?
I would not. But we do need to have a discussion about Wes Iwundu.
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. And that's actually a question that we have here from our good pal, Adam Papagiorgio. If you're Iwundu's agent, do you tell Wes to walk or re-sign? The way Clifford has pulled Wes in and out of the rotation isn't encouraging. And I agree with that. Wes has had a very strange season, and I think Wes has been, honestly, like, again, we talked a lot about the rotation issues that Steve Clifford has and finding the right guys and finding guys that he trusts. Why hasn't Wes Iwundu found his place comfortably with this team?
I think it's something that you touched on earlier, is the fact that they see so much more than we do, and they have so much more data than we do.
That's true.
That I think that hurts Wes some. And it I question it too, because I feel like by and large, when Wes gets those consistent minutes, Wes, generally speaking, gives them good run.
Yeah.
He does the little things, I think, just like Michael Carter Williams, maybe with slightly less energy. Maybe he's not diving for all the loose balls or doing all the crazy things that Carter Williams.
He's probably not making the high level, elite level plays that Carter Williams does.
Yeah, and I think that might be the difference right now in Iwundu getting the consistent playing time versus Michael Carter Williams getting.
And Wes is solid. I don't think, like, Wes is a good defender. He isn't a spectacular defender, and that probably leads to some of it. Some of it is probably, yes, his size. He really shouldn't be playing too much 3. He's really kind of stuck as a 2. And the other part is, when you're a perimeter player, and maybe it's a little bit different when you're a point guard like Michael Carter Williams can be, you've got to be able to hit from the outside. And Wes has gotten minutes and stayed in the rotation. He is hitting his outside shot. He is hitting threes at a pretty high rate. I mean, Wes hitting threes at the rate that he did last year was a big part of the Magic making the run that they made to the playoffs, of going 22-9. Wes Iwundu, I think, shot, 38, 39, somewhere near 40% on threes toward the end of last season. And in the playoffs, of course, the Raptors bet was, when Iwundu's in the game, just leave him alone. And Iwundu shot like 20%. It was not what he shot toward the end of the season. And again, eventually in the playoffs, the Raptors kind of came to the conclusion that Fournier didn't have it. And they were like, if Fournier's going to beat us, he'll beat us once, and then we'll adjust. But let him shoot at this point. And the Magic couldn't get shots to go down to loosen everything up. But Iwundu's a big part of that. I mean, you need perimeter players who can shoot.
Right. Let's see. Last season, Wes was a 37% 3-point shooter. He's seen that number go down to just over 31% this season, and roughly the same amount of minutes per game, which is obviously concerning. But on that point, I talked to Wes after a game last season, and he told me, that the biggest thing for him was the amount of work he was putting in on his 3-point shot, because consistent. And we were seeing, and I kind of wonder if, coming out of the gates this season, him not being in the rotation after how he finished last season, I don't want to say it shot his confidence, but it probably hurt his confidence some, you would think.
I mean, it's just tough to play spot minutes. It is tough not to know.
It is.
I mean, and Clifford's 100% right on that.
It's tough to not be able to build a rhythm.
It's just really hard to be in and out of the lineup and in and out of the rotation as much as the Magic have him in and out of the rotation. And so, yes, they've messed around with his minutes too much. If they want to keep him, if they want him to be a player on this team. And frankly, Adams, kind of hinting at it. Iwundu's a restricted free agent this summer. I find it hard to believe the Magic are going to keep him.
I think I agree.
As he hits the and one to get the Magic back up 9 here early in the third quarter.
We need to talk about Wes's shoes in this
Wes's
game,
shoe game Wes might have the best shoe game on the team.
He does, but if all the lights went out at Staples in this game, Wes Iwundu's shoes could have illuminated that arena. Like they would have been fine. Just shine a couple.
Wes is an Under Armour guy, I want to say.
Yes.
Yeah, he had the Frederick Douglass shoes last February, which were amazing. By the way, if you haven't seen those shoes, like I really do think he has the best shoe game on the team.
No, I agree. He had a game earlier this season where he was wearing two different color.
I remember that.
Two different color shoes. I don't remember what game, but somebody else on the team did it that game also, and I'm pretty sure that a few people made the joke that they needed to give each other their shoes back and finish their full pairs. But yeah, I think it'll be tough for Wes to come back unless, if you're Wes Iwundu, why would you come back if there's not a guarantee that you're going to get playing time?
Yeah,
that's consistent.
And I think he's proven he's an end of the rotation guy. Like I think that he has proven
he's like a ninth. Yeah, I think he's a ninth or 10th man.
He's proven that, and essentially for the Magic, he is the 10th man. He is the first guy out of the rotation, and you see it every time someone goes out. Like Evan Fournier's out in this game, Wes Iwundu's starting for him. That's his spot on the team. And he's having a really good game. Obviously, he's leading the team in scoring at this point. Just hits a 3 there to put the Magic back up 10. Like he can fill in and give you some really good minutes.
He can, and again, he does a lot of the small things that you need a guy to do, which just I don't think gets talked about enough with him, just because he doesn't get those consistent minutes as JaVale McGee.
Yeah,
hammers one home.
Yeah, and it is this is the part of the game where the Magic got really, really rough. Like, I mean, I think at this juncture of the game, they're playing solely on their offense, and Nikola Vucevic just hits a 3, and they're playing just really really not great defense, but their offense is really carrying them through this part of the game.
Yeah, which I think is a problem that we've seen with them this season is that they've just had so many defensive lapses, and they haven't been consistent on that end.
Yeah, and what do you make of the team's defense this year? It's been, I'd have to say, it's been strange, to say the least, I think, because we know this team can be very good defensively. We've seen them be very good defensively. And yet, career high, 18 points for Wes Iwundu as we're talking here. We see them be very good defensively, and yet they've had these moments where they're really poor. I mean, so much of what we're going to see coming out of this game when the Magic struggled for the next month and a half is their defense just completely slipped.
I kind of wonder if maybe some of last season was just a perfect storm for them. They had everything going in the right direction with the right pieces that really helped them figure it out defensively. And there's Aaron Gordon.
He was angling for that for several weeks. He tried that a few times in games and didn't pull it off, and then he did that, and it was just, oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, poor JaVale McGee. Jeez. So a quick aside. Is that Aaron's best in-game dunk of his career?
I think it might be. I'm trying to. I know I mentioned that as a possible topic when we were discussing what we were going to talk about throughout the course of the game, and I was trying to think. He had the Malone dunk against the Pistons, which was nice,
I'm taking the Malone dunk
Was it
against the Pistons.
was it Gordon to Hazonia, or was it Hazonia to Gordon on that dunk in the preseason game against the Heat?
It was Hazonia to Gordon. If Adam, if you're still here, I'm sure that you can correct me when I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was Hazonia to Gordon in that game.
I think it was Hazonia to Gordon, and maybe that was more Hazonia's pass than Gordon's dunk. But he got up there for that one too. That was Gordon's second year.
I mean, he's Aaron's had a lot of good ones. I mean, he had that reverse alley from Fournier against the Sixers earlier this season.
There was maybe it's because I see it.
He ended Tyler.
Maybe it's because I saw it. I see it too much at work when I'm cutting video, and the Western Wondu bounce pass to that little 180 along the baseline against the Suns this year was really nice. It was quietly a very nice dunk.
I mean, we saw his casual windmill earlier. He did a 360 against I think the Pistons on the fast break in a game, just casually.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other just like in-game Aaron Gordon dunks, because like we joke one AG highlight per game.
He had one alley oop, at least one, where his hand was like the top of the square on the backboard.
Trying to remember.
I want to say DJ Augustine threw the half court.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I think that was against Detroit, I want to say.
Yeah, it's definitely Aaron. Maybe this is the time to talk about Aaron Gordon. Magic are up 81-66 here, middle of the third quarter. He's just done the off the backboard alley oop, and he's just that play in and of itself just has to give you so much confidence when you can juke a guy so bad that you can throw yourself an alley oop. But he starts to take over this game, and he has a big finish to this game as well. Orlando's up 15 at this point, but obviously there's a lot more to come. He is he's got so much potential, and yet it still just feels like all the pieces haven't been put together. And this game, more than anything else, just shows you what he could be and what he can do.
Yeah, it does, and I think we were really seeing that towards the end of the season, or at least the games that have been played so far. I guess, while I mention that, quick aside, do you think that we resume this season, or do you think that the rest of the season is kind of a lost cause at this point?
I'm still optimistic. That was a nice dunk too. And now that Adam mentions it, yes, there is a monster dunk coming at the end of this game. That is a humongous dunk. But I still want to be optimistic. I think that it's probably more likely than not that we see that if we do see basketball again this season, that we will see them all gather in one place like Las Vegas, play, maybe every team gets like 2, maybe 3 games, and then we go to like an abbreviated like play-in tournament, and then we hit the playoffs with like a best of 3 in the first round, best of 5 in the next 2 rounds, and then best of 7 in the finals to just get it in.
I'm doing the crack research right now. That Hazonia Gordon alley-oop in the preseason against Heat was Hazonia on the bounce to Gordon. Another one that I'm seeing that we forgot about a couple of years ago against the Warriors when Aaron basically jumped from the free throw line.
Well, that game was like a blowout game with the Warriors. But yes, I remember that dunk. And Draymond Green was just like, "Get me out of the way! I do not want to be in this poster."
Draymond got
that was a business decision from Draymond Green.
Is Evan Fournier the best alley-oop passer to Aaron Gordon?
Elfrid Payton was pretty good.
Elfrid was good. I say that as the last one that on this top 10 that I'm watching was a Gordon reverse alley-oop against the Clippers. I believe in the game that he scored 40. The next was Gordon reverse against the Nets.
He does love his reverse dunks. He does love doing the 180 in game. That's probably more to protect the ball than anything else.
Then Peyton to Gordon again with the one-handed jam against the the Suns. Let's see. Oh, remember when Peyton threw the ball off the
Yes.
backboard
Oh
to him?
yeah. I remember that one.
That was Hazonia to
Yeah.
Peyton to Gordon
Oh, I remember that one now. That was on the break.
against Nets. Yep.
And I think we were like, Sonya, just take that. You don't need to pass that ball back up.
Because that's what Hazonia does.
We love you, Mario. But yeah, I'm starting to get pessimistic that we'll see the season take place. Just things aren't. I don't think things are developing the way that they would need to for everyone to feel safe. Traveling, just like
Yeah.
not even playing a game, not even kind of being in close proximity with people, but traveling. I think it's going to be very, very hard, and I don't want to be too pessimistic. I want to be optimistic. I want to believe that things are going to happen quickly, but it's I just don't know. Like it feels like everyone's just going to want to be very, very safe. I think the NBA is determined to play if they can, because they lost a lot of money this year between what happened with China. They have lost a lot of money, and I don't think that I think they want to make sure they recoup as much of that as they can.
Yeah. Do you think that it would be in the NBA's best interest to push this to where we could see the season ending in August and then the next season starting in December?
I don't think the NBA wants to go that far. I think that the deadline to get a season done is early August. If they don't feel comfortable completing the season by early August, they will cancel. They will call the season. I think they want to keep the calendar. As much as I think there's talk about moving the season to December and to Christmas, I don't think that's going to change very much. Like, would playing NBA basketball in the summer lead to more people watching? I'm not buying that. I mean, I think as far as ratings go, the problem with the NBA has been that the thing that probably gives them the most power with all the social engagement is people talking about the offseason. And so I do think that something the NBA has to do a better job of is convincing people that the regular season matters, that it's the journey and the storylines of the players in the game, not necessarily outside of the game, not the offseason. And so I think that I forgot about this one. I think that those things matter a whole lot more, and I think that's what the NBA really has to do a better job of, is getting back to that kind of storytelling and that kind of emphasis on their season, and that's going to fix their ratings problems. They got to do a better job picking games too for their national TV package. I think that they're too much of a slave to think to old ways of thinking.
You can't just cater to all the big markets and to these teams that are historically great teams. Like there is no reason that the Lakers the last 2 or 3 years should have been on TV.
You should be selling
TV.
the players, not the teams. Like yes, the teams matter. Yes, brand names matter. LeBron on the Lakers will make the Lakers a bigger brand name, and but it's LeBron that puts them on TV. It's not necessarily the Lakers. I mean, maybe a few more people might watch because it's the Lakers, but to me, it's still, if you have star players. I mean, look, the reason the Magic are not on national TV is they don't have anyone that will draw eyeballs. If they're a 55, 56, 57 win team, the stars create themselves. You win first, then you become stars. Yeah. The NBA putting the Pelicans on TV so much at the beginning of the season and then being unable to get out of it was a huge mistake, because Zion Williamson went out and all of a sudden there is no reason to watch the Pelicans and you're stuck with them. What I think the NBA has to do a better job of is being willing to flex national TV games better. I mean, obviously there's probably some timing issues. You got to give a couple weeks notice so crews can travel and scout and do all and prepare and do all those things. But if there's a really big game that you didn't think would be a big game in August, that's a really big game in December, January, flip to that. You got to be able to flip to that game and be a little bit more nimble. And I think that's a huge thing for the NBA. As storylines develop, promote the game. Like, you have a game where you explain, like, hey, the Nuggets are really good. Like, maybe you do have to have them. Maybe you do have to make sure like it's the Nuggets Lakers where they're going up against a well-known name like LeBron James, or Nuggets Bucks and they're going up a well-known
Mm-hmm.
name like Giannis. But
Against Giannis, yeah, you can't have like I don't know. So you can't have like the Nuggets at home playing the
yeah,
Jazz on national
Mitchell's not that
TV
big of a name,
consistently.
but you should be, which you
Which
probably should be.
again, like it should be, and that should be. I feel like that's a matchup that should probably get some recognition on national television because it's two of the best teams in the Western Conference. But that's one of the problems is it's so much about the brands and the team
It's a
names more than the
self-fulfilling
players,
prophecy, I
like you're
feel like.
saying. And yeah, and obviously there are certain teams and certain players that you're trying to cater to, like with them having the Pelicans on national TV earlier this season because you want to get the Zion
But
games.
clearly on that
But
front with Zion,
I
they were able to flex into his games later in the season. So I feel like
why can't they need to open up the flex rules and have them be a full season thing rather than a just the second half or whenever that becomes a thing that they can start using. Like they need to be able to
yeah,
do that
for
from
sure.
the start, I think. Obviously, because when the schedule comes out and the national TV games come out for the first half of the season, like you can't predict when Kyrie Irving's going to go down with a season-ending injury. Like what Kyrie alone probably makes the Nets at least a semi-watchable national TV team here and there. But without him, I mean, what do you have? You have
Yeah.
Jared Allen, Karis LeVert. You need to be able to flex out that game to give you, because I guarantee that there's at least one game on 85 to 90% of NBA game nights that should be a nationally televised game.
For sure. And I mean, I think even doing, like there are different things the NBA should try. Like creating a red zone type channel would help. Even if it's
How would you, if you're the NBA and you created a red zone type channel, what would the, I guess, the scope of the network be? What would you be focusing on?
So the way I would create this red zone channel, or and the NBA has a show that kind of does this on NBA TV where they'll whip around to all the games and they'll have a panel. But what I would do is I would have a featured game, whether not, and obviously not a national TV game because like the way the NBA schedule is structured is different than the NFL. So you're not going to be able to show a game on ESPN or ABC or TNT or anything like that. But I would have every night a featured game in the early window, in the 7, 8 o'clock window, and a featured game in the late window. So like that 9, 10:30 window.
Yeah.
And I would essentially say, have like your whoever, I forget what that guy's name is. I would have him kind of Chris Hansen. I would have him kind of set the stage and say, "Hey everyone, welcome into NBA."
Or Scott.
Huh?
Scott.
Yeah, whatever.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I would have him kind of set the table and say, here are the games that we have tonight. Our featured game in the early window is this. It starts at 8. But at 7 o'clock, we're going to take you to Atlanta to see the Atlanta Hawks take on the Miami Heat. And then you watch the first hour of that game. And then as games get closer to the end, or as there's you cut in for highlights like they do on Red Zone. And as you get closer to the end, or if that 7 o'clock window game becomes like a 20-point deficit, you say, well, looks like Hawks pull it. The Hawks are pulling away. They're up 20. Let's send you now to Brooklyn where the Nets are taking on the Bucks, and you watch that game. So you still get like a full like game that's competitive, and you get a feature game, and you're still kind of following the game as it's going on with highlights interspersed within it. But then as you get to like the very end to crunch time, you say, okay, fourth quarter now, 5 minutes to go, 2-point game. There's been 8 lead changes. Let's take you to Detroit where the Pistons are battling the whoever the Bulls. So you could kind of I think you could pull it off where you say like this is our featured game this is our featured kind of lead pass game of the night. You watch most of that game, but as that game kind of twists and turns and as other games get close, you kind of start bouncing around, and you still, it's essentially be like, League Pass on steroids, which is what Red Zone is anyway. Like Red Zone, they have a featured game that they tend to stick with, but they show you all the
Right.
highlights. And if that game gets boring, they take you to another game. And I think that would be, I think that would be you could get people to pay for it. I think that would be part of a League Pass, package, obviously. But I think it would be a way, even if you make it like a show on ESPN, like let's say, or NBA TV, because obviously there's RSN deals and everything involved in this. But let's say
Right.
you air that on a Wednesday night when there's like 30, where there's 8, 9, 10 games. Like you could get people
Right.
to show up and watch. You could get people to watch that, I think. And it would, if you could put it on national
Yeah.
TV, you could put it on somewhere where a lot of people can watch it. You could give them a chance to really experience the league in full. But I think what the NBA is always trying to do is mimic the Twitter experience. NBA Twitter is fantastic. Everyone gets excited for every game. If something crazy is going on in the NBA, social media is the first one to buzz about it. And like a game like this, the Magic playing the Lakers, there'd be no reason for anyone to watch this game. But when you see the Magic are up 19, you cut it and say, Magic are up 19 on the Lakers. They don't have Evan Fournier. This is a big upset. We'll keep an eye on that game. They show you the Aaron Gordon dunk. They show you all that. And then you cut into like right now where the Magic, a minute left in the third quarter, the Lakers coming back, a 20-2 run. They're within 3. Let's take you to Staples Center with David Steele and Jeff Turner on Fox Sports Florida. And then you watch that game. I mean, that's kind of how I want to experience League Pass. Like I like watching full games when I can and being able to go back and watch games so I can help, kind of scout opponents a little bit. But I want to be able to bounce between games and see what's really important at the moment. And I think, again, the whole key for the NBA, they win social media. They've got to figure out a way to make that social media experience work on TV. Like second screen experiences like what we're doing. I think we'll see a lot more stuff like this. Like ESPN did a thing like we're doing, where they just have everyone kind of sitting around watching and talking about the game while it's on TV, and you're watching them talk, but the TV is on otherwise. And I always have to remind myself, NBA Twitter is the minority. Not everyone is on Twitter. Not everyone is experiencing the NBA this way. And so you do have to remember that. But at the same time, there's got to be a way to engage fans and get them to buy into the product and the games at hand and not just the star players and the star teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's an interesting thought because, like, for me at this point, even though I have a team that I root for in the NFL, ever since I started watching Red Zone, I found it hard to watch an entire NFL game. And it's weird because, like, I can sit on a Saturday afternoon and watch an entire college football game, no problem. But, come Sunday, like, I want that whip around. I want to just be able to see, the big plays.
Like, it's hard to compare everything to the NFL because the NFL is its own animal. It owns everything because fantasy football works for the NFL because it's 1 day a week. It's one game. You're not managing everything. It's all building up to one day. The NBA doesn't have that. The NBA is never going to have that. The NBA shouldn't have that. That's not the NBA's model. But there's got to be a way to get fans to engage with the teams in a more meaningful way. Like, honestly, like, it could be something as simple as, instead of playing kind of on random nights in a random schedule, you're largely playing on the same nights. Like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are NBA nights. Like you try and mimic that in that way. I remember I was at Northwestern. My freshman year was the last year before Big Ten Network, and every basketball game was Wednesday or Saturday. The time was different depending on what TV wanted, but every Northwestern basketball game was on Wednesday or Saturday. Then the Big Ten Network came, and the Big Ten Network was essentially gave the Big Ten the ability to put a Big Ten game on every night. And so all of a sudden you had a game on a Tuesday, you had a game on a Thursday, you had a game on a Saturday, you had a game on a Sunday. And so the schedule got different. And I remember my junior year, I was at the Big Ten tournament and I was talking with the coach's wife. And she was like, we're thinking of trying to create a student advisory body to figure out how to get students to the games. And like all of us, we were juniors at the time, kind of told her like, well, part of the problem was like our freshman year, every game was Wednesday and Saturday. It was like football. You could schedule around it. You could say, oh, I'm going to sit and watch this game on this day because that's basketball day. That's basketball night. And I could plan my schedule around it to make sure I was free to watch that. Obviously, you still have your special days. Like as much as we hate it, like having a Thursday TNT game still feels special, especially for a team like the Magic. Having that game feels special. Like we're talking about things that feel special. What?
Or a Sunday afternoon ABC game
feels special. Like, it because of the time zone thing. Watching this Magic game at 10:30 and like feeling the intensity of this game, it felt special because we don't get a lot of 10:30 games. So you had to kind of map your schedule around it. But kind of having that ability to plan your day a little bit, like football. That's one thing football has well. It owns a day of the week. Being able to plan that day. And so maybe over the course of the week you play 2 to 3 games. So maybe you get a bye one day. And you generally count on playing Monday, Wednesday. Thursday, if you're playing on Thursday on TNT, you don't play Wednesday because Thursday is the special day. If you play on Sunday on the national TV, you don't play Sunday. Like if you can map out your schedule a little bit or map out your days, I think that will increase attendance, which may or may not matter and probably won't matter the rest of this year. But you can. I think that would help attendance, and I think that would help viewership because then you can start scheduling and planning your life a little bit, and then of course with flexing and trying to get the best games on national TV, you could get the best games on national TV better.
Yeah, I agree. Not that this has gone off the rails at all, because I think that this is an important topic to talk about, and I think it's a good idea, but. Kind of circling back to the game, Magic are up 5 right now, just about 10, just under 11 minutes left.
Make it 2
to go in the fourth quarter. Make it 2 after a Troy Daniels 3. Something that I've kind of wondered: have you seen somebody play for the Magic that is as good at drawing fouls on 3-point shots?
No,
as
I don't think
Ross
there's
is?
ever been anyone to. And I mean, I think some of it is a recent phenomenon with the dramatic increase in 3-point attempts that we've seen in the league over the last 6 or 7 years. I don't think there's anyone that's been as good at that as Ross.
Who would you? You're a little bit better at with the history of the franchise than I am. I'm happy to admit that. Who do you think would be the second best player in Magic history at drawing fouls on 3-point shots?
I think it's Rashard Lewis.
I would think
JJ.
JJ.
No, you're right. It is JJ. It is JJ.
Because I think that Redick had that. It's not as fluid as Terrence Ross is. Like Terrence Ross.
I think what Redick does is he's in such constant movement and motion.
And that's what Terrence Ross does.
So that like he can catch you by stopping, like when he stops so suddenly and you hit the brakes too late, he's got you.
Yeah, and Terrence is always in motion. It feels like he's running off so many screens each possession that it's hard for the defender. It is. And then you get a guy who's stepping up to guard that.
And on this team especially, Ross is really the only guy that has the potential to just go off. Like if you aren't paying attention to him, or even if you are, he will beat good defense. And like that's such a big thing for this Magic team is they don't have a lot of guys that will beat good defense consistently. And when Ross is on, like he was toward the end of the hiatus, like he was for parts of this game when the Magic built their lead, he beats good defense, and that's, again, you can't defend that. If you're beating good defense as a defender, you have to live with it, and that's, to me, as I've been thinking about it more and thinking about the playoffs a little bit more as the Magic prepare for it, that's kind of the missing element for this team when we get to the postseason, when we get to games that matters, you get deeper in the playoffs, you need your best players to beat good defense because everyone knows what's coming.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the things that makes the playoffs tough for this Magic team is they don't have that guy that is going to go break down a defense yet. They don't
Fultz is
have,
the closest, and again,
yeah.
we'll watch him here in a bit as this game comes to a close. But just kind of on that point, Adam, our good pal Adam Papagiorgio, commenting on our discussion about players drawing fouls on 3-pointers. Redick is the only former Magic guy you can mention. Ross is better at drawing threes. Redick takes such a huge leap forward in his 3-point attempts that defenders would be in the way. Ross goes straight up so quick he catches dudes off guard. I think that is actually a really good observation on that front as things go. Since we're at this point of the game, Magic down by 1, 96-95 with about 8 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Aaron Gordon is getting some minutes at point guard here with Fultz on the bench. I wouldn't say it's working particularly well. I think Gordon is hunting for a shot a little bit too much, and you watch LeBron just miss that dunk, like I said he would at that side of the court. But Gordon's probably hunting for a shot a little bit too much. But you've seen Gordon over the last, again entering the hiatus, last 10 games, averaging around 7 assists per game. What do you think of Gordon as a potential playmaker, as someone who is able to create for others the way that he can in this game?
I think that we've talked about this some, maybe more in previous season. This season, Aaron should be trying to mold himself into like a Draymond Green type player or a Sean Marion type player who is kind of a jack of all trades. I don't think that Aaron is ever going to be a 22, 23 point a night scorer. I think that that's something that most people can agree on, and that's okay. I think that Sean Marion's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, whoa, hold on. I don't know if Sean Marion's a Hall of Famer, but he's a very good player.
Sean, if you look at Sean Marion's, best seasons when he was with the Suns, you can definitely make a case for him. If Aaron Gordon can turn into that kind of guy who's a menace defensively, who's going to get you, 16 to 20 points a night, going to get you 5-6 rebounds, 4, 5, 6 assists, like you're going to have a really good player there, and a guy who's going to be able to make an impact. I think that that's really what Aaron needs to be, more so than trying to be that number one guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I always think that whenever Zach Lowe wrote that piece where he kind of said, you could see Gordon kind of battling his demons. He's got the angel on his shoulders telling him to be Draymond Green, a great defender, kind of a facilitator on offense, and the devil on his shoulders telling him to shoot the ball constantly. And I think honestly we're seeing that play out in this game. He'll finish with 21 points. He has 13 points in the second half. 3 assists against 4 turnovers, 7 for 12 shooting, 6 for 8 from the foul line, only 1 of 3 from beyond the arc, which I think is probably the right number for him overall. Taking about 3, maybe 4 3-point field goal attempts per game. But you kind of see him trying to do a little too much sometimes with the ball in his hands when really he works best the way that we're seeing him now. And so I think, like one of the questions I had entering this game, because Gordon has a very good game. He obviously had that off the backboard dunk. He obviously has a lot of highlights in this game, and Markelle Fultz back in, so he's no longer running the point, essentially. But so much, I think, with Aaron Gordon is finding the right balance. And what I think was, like last year, I thought he had the right balance. Like, he had some kind of selfish moments at the beginning of the last season, and then he kind of figured out what his role needed to be on that team for it to be successful. I think kind of similar to last year, right as the season was going on hiatus, right at the All-Star break, he figured it out again and was starting to cut a lot more. And some of it might have been health. Some of it might have been he was healthy at last, which, I think Gordon's health has always been the biggest thing that's slowed him down.
Yeah, it has. And, touching on another part of this game, you look at who has he, drawn the most defensively. He's mostly guarded LeBron. And LeBron had 19 assists in the game, but LeBron only had 19 points and was 7 of 19 from the field. In this game. I mean,
LeBron was very passive offensively in this game. I think he was not out to kill the Magic tonight or in this game.
No, he wasn't. And that, when you're as great as LeBron, you can have those nights where you're like, I'll let everyone else do it. Try to get everyone else involved a little bit. But I mean, you talk about what Aaron does defensively. Still, I mean, Aaron refuses to back down from any challenge
Yeah.
that you give him, right? And that's the thing. Like, he does so many little things that I think if he can hone in and just kind of focus more and not try to be a 23 a point
And some of that, and
a
some of
night
that is
guy.
that's what the Magic sometimes
It
need him to do. Like in this game, the Magic need him to score. Like he has to be a scorer because they're out Evan Fournier.
and that's fine. Like, I think that you have to be able to pick and choose your spots to be able to do
Yeah,
that, right?
you have to know
Like,
when it's time. Like they
you
Clifford
know,
talks a lot about like Nikola Vucevic. They don't run a lot of plays for him. He kind of picks his spot, and again, like I think again, a criticism of this Magic team is they don't have that guy who can take over games, and it should be Vucevic, but the Magic just the way the Magic's offense run doesn't do that, so it sets up for Fournier to be that guy, and Fournier probably shouldn't be that guy. Now again, we'll see at the end of this game, Markelle Fultz kind of takes over the end of the game here, and Aaron Gordon takes over the end of the game here, and it adds a huge dynamic to this team. I really feel like that you have guys
yeah,
who kind of understand the moment. And again, like I think a huge credit to Markelle Fultz. Like end of that Phoenix game, 2 games before this one against the Lakers, he makes a huge turnover that cost the team the game. That literally cost the team the game. He owns up to it. Against Sacramento, he makes big plays that help the Magic win that game. And then against the Lakers here, he makes big plays that help them win this game. So obviously a learning curve with a lot of these guys still. But the Magic still needs someone who's going to take over the end of games and kind of lift the team up. And, their best player, again, argue whether he's their best player or not, but Nikola Vucevic isn't that guy. Centers, it's tough to be that guy in the center. Jonathan Isaac isn't that guy, maybe yet, maybe he will be. You're relying on guys that are still figuring their way out to kind of take over games. And again, I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen the Magic struggle a little bit at the end of the season, or at the end of games this season.
yeah, it is. And on the Fultz front too, I think that one thing that we've seen him do really well that I think is maybe a little bit underrated is when he gets into like a tough position when he's in the post, he's good at getting the ball
There's our
out of
third
that.
missed dunk on that basket, by the way. Like I told you there were going to be a few more at that end.
Jesus. But we saw it a couple possessions ago when he found Vooch for the post up from maybe not the most ideal of positions that the Fultz can find guys even when he might not be in grade A position, right?
Yeah. And again, like Fultz,
Jeez.
and again, like we talked about this maybe when my mic wasn't working, but Fultz, like we want Fultz to be more in control of the offense and to have more responsibility. But the same token on that front is that he's going to make mistakes because he's young. He's still like at this point of the season, he's still figuring out. When to attack, when to pass the ball, when to be aggressive, he's still learning how to manage
It's
a
a
game.
big three from
Big
Aaron
three from
Gordon.
Aaron Gordon. And so he's still learning how to manage a game. And again, like it felt like as the season was closing, and again, not having Evan Fournier there, no one to defer to, like he's in control. It felt like he was figuring that out, like he was finding that balance. Again, like so much of what we talk about here is about balance, is about knowing when to look for your own, when to help the team, how to help the team while looking for your own, honestly. So much of this league, I think, is about that. And I think that's what young players especially have a very difficult time figuring out until they've experienced it and made these mistakes. Like the mistake against Phoenix, like some of the mistakes that Fultz has made in this game.
Right. And again, this is basically Fultz's rookie season. Coming into this year, he played, 33 games?
33 total games.
33 total games. So just the fact that, before everything shut down, he'd missed I believe it was only one game.
One game this season, I believe.
One game, and that was due to an illness.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he's been able to stay healthy and get the reps that I think we've needed to see from him is huge. Like, I think that alone, we talked about it earlier. I think that alone, Fultz staying healthy and getting game action in, I think that
Oof.
alone constitutes a solid season from
Yeah,
him
for sure.
as he
For sure.
finishes
As we're watching
impressively through
this, the
contact.
Magic up 105-103 with 4 minutes to play. Fultz with 17 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists. And again, again, like, this is your first time watching the game. And I'm watching this game the second time. It didn't always feel like Fultz was just dominating every aspect of the game, but when he takes over, like, you really feel him taking over. Like, you feel him taking over this game and see another nice move past McGee, but he just can't finish. You feel him really taking over this game.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that Fultz does really well is he has really good games. He's not always loud about it. He has those really good games when you look up and all of a sudden he's got 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists, something like that. And you're like, oh wow, like Fultz had a really good game, and you're just not really you're not thinking about it because he hasn't made that.
He hasn't made like the huge highlight dunk, like that finish that we're talking about, that gave the Magic the 105-103 lead. That was a highlight play. Like, that was just a impressive play. Like, he almost had come down, just releasing the ball at the last second to avoid a travel, finishing around 2 defenders, and with a nice steal, he'll go to the foul line with a chance to give the Magic the lead. This is your first time watching this game, so I want you to enjoy the end of this game, because it is an impressive finish for sure on the Magic's front, and they do a lot of really, really good things here to close this game out. But
that's one that Wes Iwundu has to finish.
Wes Iwundu has to finish that game. He has to finish that shot. But I also like to mention the Zoom billboard on the side of the Staples Center. Very terrible foreshadowing, I have to say. I want to get your thoughts on this, as knowing that the Magic do pull this game out, being up 21 and trailing by 4 late in the fourth quarter. Is it more impressive that the Magic came back to win this game? What does this say about the Magic that they gut this game out the way that they do?
I think that it says that they were. I don't want to say they were turning the corner, but I think that this is kind of an important game for them, right? They needed that signature win.
They've only, let's not even say to that point. The Magic have 5 total wins against teams with winning records. They have the second worst record against teams with winning records in the Eastern Conference. Only the Chicago Bulls have a worse record than them against winning teams. There is something to say about taking care of your business against the teams that you need to take care of your business against. And yes, granted, Magic lost to the Hawks. They lost to the Knicks. They have bad losses. But for the most part, they have won the games that they're supposed to win. But as I think Steve Clifford has said numerous times on podiums after games, ultimately you've got to be able to beat the good teams to win in this league, to win when it matters in the playoffs. And that's where the Magic are shaky.
Yeah, it is. And, just I think getting that win against a good team like this, even if it didn't carry over, like when you talk about it and you think about it, is theoretically really an important win, because it gives you confidence that you might not have had, especially coming off, blowing that loss to the Suns, blowing that lead there. You blow the lead. Yes, you come out with the victory, but you can't feel. I would say you can't feel super strong after that because of the way you finished. Then you get this win against the Lakers. Like, that feels like a win that I think for a lot of teams could push them up to the next level. Obviously, the Magic put a lot into this game, and then they have a tough back-to-back the next night playing the Clippers. And then they had another game against the Warriors.
And that was a game where the Magic lost the lead as well. Like, that was a game the Magic had won. They lost the lead. They lost a big lead. They had to come back at the end. They came back. They took the lead late, and then they gave up a huge run at the end of that game with a guy like D'Angelo Russell who can take over games offensively and beat good defense. They gave up a lead and a big chance to win a game. Again, That's a bad loss. That's one of the games where the Magic should have won. They had an opponent they should have beaten, and they gave away the game.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also, again, something that we've talked about is how young this team is. Like, these are the type of games that you have to be in and that you have to win to kind of grow that confidence, to make yourselves like really feel like you can do it when it comes down to playoff time.
I mean,
right?
these are this game for the Magic. I would say
they
played this game at playoff intensity
for the Magic. Yeah, it has to feel like a playoff.
And again, the Lakers, when you're playing a LeBron James team, when you're playing the Lakers, when they've got one of the best records in the West, the Lakers see playoff intensity from teams like the Magic all the time. And frankly, the Lakers did not play a playoff intense game here. Like, we're watching this. LeBron, 19 assists, but 19 points. He is not looking to score in this game. And it's not, and Aaron Gordon does a good job defensively, don't get me wrong. But LeBron doesn't have that look in his eye like he's going to try and win this game. And
all this game takes to go the other way, and the Lakers end up winning, is LeBron saying, "Okay, I'm gonna take over," and LeBron doesn't do that.
He really doesn't. Like,
and we saw that happen. I mean, when he was in Cleveland, we saw that happen when he was in Miami. We saw that happen when he was in Cleveland again against the Magic. LeBron has this ability to just flip the switch whenever he wants. And it's a dangerous trait to have, I think, because I think it can lead to maybe having
fairness, not in fairness, like, I don't think it's an excuse, but he knows he has a team that can get away with that. Like, I don't want to take anything away from the Magic. They play a fantastic game here. This is the best win of the season. This is the best game of the season. That's why we're doing this live stream, because this is the best game of the Magic season. And maybe we'll do this again.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe we'll do this again for the Memphis game, which was also fun, and maybe the last time we see the Magic play basketball this year. But
here's actually a good question: is this win or the blowout against the Rockets a better?
That is a good question. I think from start to finish, the Rockets win was better. But the fact that the Magic had to really fight for this game, the fact that they were so undermanned and they still played so well and took a win on the road from a team that, yes, without Anthony Davis, but had a lot of things figured out, as Aaron Gordon does that.
Okay. On Aaron Gordon, real quick on Aaron Gordon in-game dunks. Just against the Lakers, I think we need to rank them real quick.
That's number one.
The off the backboard dunk, or a couple years ago in LA when he did the windmill in traffic.
Yeah. That dunk, like, McGee is straight fouling, and he's still, it's too late. It's like, that was like,
man.
Like, I told you there was one more come.
Yeah. No, I watch highlights of this game because, and look, this isn't a, hey, I don't want to watch.
It's 10:30. We got, some of us have day jobs.
Some of us have to be up at 5 a.m. for work.
Some of us have to be up at midnight tonight for work, but I won't say who.
It's not me, because I am currently technically jobless and also carless. So if anybody wants to buy me a car, just, where to find me on twitter.com.
This is shameless plugs here to slightly complain about our real lives instead of watching the Magic. This is why we need Magic basketball, folks.
As up and down as Nikola Vucevic has been this season, like, that shot right there is so big in the grand scheme of things, because it gives the Magic a 4-point lead with just under a minute left. And it kind of feels like it steadies the ship a little bit, right?
Like, that's Vucevic's job offensively. Like, he's there to steady the ship. Like, when you need just to get a basket, just run a pick and pop or pick and roll for Vucevic. My criticism for Vucevic this year is that he's taken too many threes. I think that that's been a real issue for this team. But other than that, I think he's been. I mean, his numbers are right there. I mean, I want him in the post a little bit more. I want him, not taking as many threes. I want him kind of staying in the mid range, which I think is where he's most effective. But offensively, he's been fine overall. Like shooting hasn't been as great as it could be, but I think a lot of that's because his post ups have decreased so dramatically. Not that he was great at post ups, but he's at least above average. But kind of,
Right.
but like back to that point, like you're watching it here, the way the Magic have to gut this game out. Like things were not easy in this game. The injuries, the Lakers coming back, the Lakers charge back at them. They have to take the lead back in the fourth quarter. To me, like that meant a lot more. I feel like, and maybe it's also like how special it felt. Experiencing it with Magic Twitter at 1:00, 12:30 at night. That made it feel a little bit bigger to me than the Houston game. The Houston game was really like encouraging, and obviously, I'll say this in the Houston game's defense: momentum is the next day's pitcher. What do the Magic do next game out of this one? They get blown out by the Clippers. Maybe certainly an energy drain, but the next game after that, they lose to the Warriors. And in fact, the Magic really only beat the Hornets twice in the next 10 games after this game. Orlando does not carry over this momentum, which is really surprising because they play so well in this game. The Magic don't carry forward this momentum. That Houston game next night or the next outing, they come from behind to beat Memphis. And it really feels like the momentum's starting to build heading into a big homestand. Obviously, we won't know what the Magic would have done because the season was put on hiatus, but like I guess in the Houston game's defense, that might be why the Houston game might have been bigger, might have been a better win. But to me, at this point of the season, it just felt like the Magic needed something to give them juice against a quality opponent, and this gave it to them.
Right. And I think that that's just part of the ebbs and flows. Oh, great finish from Markelle Fultz.
Like I said, Fultz closes this game now. 116-112. Fultz closes this game the rest of the way. And he's got the triple-double that assist to Vucevic gave him his second career triple-double. This was just an impressive performance, especially at the end of the game. But, again, you look at it now. LeBron hits the three with 32 seconds left. The Lakers don't stop coming at the end of this game. The Magic have to make plays to finish it.
Yeah, I think that says something about the resiliency of this team that they might have shown at in different parts of the season. I mean, Fultz again
over LeBron.
Fultz is just over LeBron, and then he cramps.
Like it's like Fultz takes over this game at the end and makes plays, whether it's the assist to Vooch, whether it's those two baskets at the end. Like this game. Here's the next question then. Having watched this game now, is this Markelle Fultz's best game in a Magic uniform this year? I have two candidates. I think it's this one or the Brooklyn game. Where he wins. I mean, he wins that game in the fourth quarter too.
I think. Okay, so here's the I guess the tough part for me is like watching this game. Like Fultz just seems so composed, and he's making these big plays and he's finishing when they need him to. And just because of like how things have worked out with having an actual full-time job, like I haven't seen maybe as many games as I've needed to. So I haven't seen that Nets game either.
Well,
yeah.
In that case, let me go ahead and keep talking while I pull up when that game's going to play.
One taken into consideration a stat that doesn't mean a ton because you get guys who put up triple doubles on teams that lose all the time, right? Always mean that a guy has made a great impact on his team in a certain game. This game in particular, Markelle Fultz has made a pretty profound impact on the Magic. He's made those two big buckets late that have pretty much locked up the game as Aaron Gordon gets fouled after LeBron misses
You hold
a
your breath every time
three-pointer.
LeBron
Good
takes a three
defense.
at the end of games, but great defense from B.J. Johnson.
I was going to say really good defense from B.J. Johnson to stick with it
to steal a concept from our friends at the Ringer. Is this B.J. Johnson's Apex Mountain?
Probably.
This is definitely his Apex Mountain game, at least in a Magic uniform. Unfortunately, that Magic Nets game is not on the replay list, which I think is a crime.
As of now, I think that's important to say because I do think that there's the potential that we could see teams and stations decide to add more games.
Well, as of now, so and thanks again to our friends at Fox Sports Florida for airing these games and giving us something to watch to feed our basketball Jones. But the next broadcast from Fox Sports Florida will be April 8th. They're tracking the games the days that the Magic would have played. So the Magic would have played the Philadelphia 76ers tonight in Philadelphia. That was the game on the schedule. Their next broadcast is April 8th, Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. They'll play the Magic's come-from-behind victory over the Brooklyn Nets, which was one of the best. Again, such a huge game in the playoff race. Gave the Magic at least a tie in the season series with the Nets, and would have given and gives them a little bit of a leg up in the playoff chase. Which again, we'll see what comes of that. They'll play the two games against the Timberwolves after that on the 10th and 11th. So we'll see Aaron Gordon's triple-double and then the start of that road trip. I would have taken out that at Timberwolves game to put the Nets game in, but I think some of it was they also wanted to gerrymander it so that this Magic Lakers game would be on a Sunday when more people could watch. And then April 13th and April 15th, the Rockets game that we talked about where the Magic dominate the Rockets and blow them out of the water. And then April 15th, the final night of what would have been the regular season, the Magic at Grizzlies, the last game the Magic have played so far this year. So that is the rest of the Fox Sports Florida replay schedule. Final thoughts here now that the Magic have won the game. I feel like I should run through the box score a little bit before we get there. The Magic defeat the Los Angeles Lakers, as you just saw, 119 to 118. Aaron Gordon with 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Markelle Fultz with 21 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, his second career triple-double. Nikola Vucevic, 19 points, 4 rebounds, surprisingly only 4 rebounds. Wes Iwundu, a career-high 19 points. Terrence Ross with 15 off the bench. B.J. Johnson with 9. Gary Clark in his Magic debut with 10 points. The Lakers led in scoring by Quinn Cook with 22. LeBron James with 19 points, 19 assists, but the Lakers fall 119 to 118. Zach, final thoughts on this game. What were your impressions of the Magic on this night?
Well, if you had told me that Nikola Vucevic would have only had 4 rebounds and they would have pushed the rebounding battle between the two teams, I would have said you were a bold-faced liar. But obviously, I think this was, maybe a little bit of a coming out party of sorts for Markelle Fultz. We had seen him make some big plays. We saw that big dunk against the Cavs in the first game of the season, and we'd seen him make some big buckets at other points. But I think that this was really his game to shine and really to kind of take things over a little bit and leave his stamp on the game. And then also Aaron Gordon. We talked ad nauseum about him. Just what he was able to do, I think, on both ends of the court. He came up with some big buckets, and he played, I think, really good defense on LeBron.
Yeah,
overall.
I think so too. I agree with that. I think this was, kind of looking back on it now, this was the game where you really started to think that, Markelle Fultz isn't just some nice story anymore. Like this kid can play at a really high level in big moments. Like, when we talked a lot during the course of this game about the Magic needing to find a guy that can finish games. Like coming into this game, the Magic lost to the Suns on Devin Booker's kind of brilliance. They nearly lost to the Kings on De'Aaron Fox's brilliance and needed an Aaron Gordon tip-in to win that game. This was a game where it really felt like Fultz is a guy who can take over and really impact all facets of the game and really just make a huge impact. And not only that, and giving dap to Jimmy Goldstein, which is truly the highest praise you can get in the NBA. that this was a game that it really felt like, Fultz isn't just a nice reclamation project. Like, this is a guy that should be a core part of this team moving forward. Like, this. It's time to buy in on this kid. It's time to, like, if you haven't fully invested in this kid, it's time to fully invest in him because he can make big plays in big moments against big time players.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think that again, I would say that this is probably the signature win of the Magic season.
I think so too.
Obviously that Rockets win is really nice, and even their win against the but you factor in going on the road to say the LA's of everything.
LA Nightlife is undefeated.
Yep, LA Nightlife. I'm sure we could ask Adam about that, as he was there for both of these games. So yeah, I think that this is definitely the signature win of the season, and it's a quality win. And even if we don't see them play any more regular season games, which if I were a betting man, I would say that we're not going to see any more NBA basketball this year. I don't see it being possible unless the league is okay with playing games without fans.
I think they are, but I think it's more about timing of safety. Like, they don't want to travel across the country if it's not safe to do so.
Yeah, and the biggest problem is, and if they are to get back, I do agree that it's probably going to be in 1 to 2 centralized locations. It's still going to be tough to put on those games because, as we're currently sitting, they're saying that we shouldn't gather in more than groups of 10 people. It takes at least 100
people on the court.
Yeah, I mean, there's 10 people on the court. There's what, 40 people on a bench at least. So it's just, I feel like it's going to be too tough to make it happen. I was actually talking to a good friend of mine recently about this. I think that if we see any sport get going again anytime soon in actual competition, it will probably be the PGA Tour. I think that just logistically it would be the easiest for them because of the amount of space that they could spread people out.
I mean,
over.
You could even do that without fans, and again, just there's just not a lot of point of contact between people.
Yeah,
but you have a lot of people touching flag sticks, so maybe you have a designated flag puller at each hole.
They could do that. I mean, they could go to what some local municipalities have gone to and go with like a stick that you can't take out of the ground, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a kind of unprecedented times, and obviously we're all still figuring this out and hoping that the curve flattens soon and we can get back to watching live basketball. But if we can't, this I hope this has been fun. I hope this has gotten people thinking wistfully about this team again and enjoying what I think both of us feel like is if not the best, one of the best wins.
One of the best wins, yeah. And I want to, and we're gonna finish up here soon, but one thing that I want to applaud the networks for, and I get it, like it's tough because we've seen all these events, but I think it's really good that these networks are going and trying to put on these old games for us, just to give us something. Because for so many people, like these are moments and games that meant a lot to them. The other night ESPN re-aired the Rose Bowl between USC and Texas.
Yeah, that was a great game.
That was a fantastic game. Just being able to look back on a game that maybe you haven't watched in a handful of years, and being able to pick out maybe something that you didn't pick up on the first time it happened is nice. And again, it gives us a little bit an escape, even if it's only an hour or two. It lets us get away from what the reality of things are now, and I think that that's important for everybody.
For sure. for sure. And hopefully, hopefully Fox Sports Florida guys, Dante, David, Jeff, Tyson, heck, Paige, Mackenzie, tell whoever you need to tell. Give us classic games give us classic games after the season ends. Don't, we're supposed to have 4 more playoff games. Give us 4 classic games if you can. The NBA is doing this great thing, NBA Together on their Facebook page, re-airing old games. They re-aired Tracy McGrady's 62-point game
62-point
the other night. I've actually watched that game over again before, and Tracy McGrady is awesome. Everyone else is not.
Gilbert
Arenas is awesome in that game, but everyone else on both teams is not awesome.
Was bad.
I remember NBA TV aired that game, so they put in a 2-hour window, and so they cut out part of the game, and they left in a part where neither McGrady nor Arenas was in the game, and I was just like, I remember watching it. I'm just like, why did they leave that part in the game? Take that part out, dear God. But hopefully we get more classic Magic games. I'm sure NBA TV will air some old Shaq games. I'm hoping, since now I've discovered this technology at least, I'm hoping we can get a couple of the Magic bloggers together and rewatch some Magic games as well and share our thoughts on them like we did today as well. I want to thank everyone for sticking with me through some technical difficulties. I know that there might have been some problem with my audio in the first half. I'm using a new program that I was not familiar with. This was a little bit of a test run, so I apologize if people missed stuff in the first half of the game. I apologize to you, Zach, because I know I don't want to waste your time either. But I think we had some good conversations about the Magic, both in the moment of this game against the Lakers, as well as for the course of the season too. So I think we had a lot of good conversation, and hopefully we can do this again the next for a future Magic game as well. If people want it, I'll be posting this feed or at least part of this telecast on Locked On Magic. So Zach, tell everyone where they can find you if they want to follow you and pester you with Magic questions.
Yeah, if you're not already, you can find me on Twitter at Zach Oliver NBA. There's no guarantee that I'm just going to tweet about the NBA. I'm going to tweet about a lot of things. You'll probably see me tweeting a lot about golf this upcoming week because I'm going to be sad that we're not watching the Masters live. But some historical round is going to be really nice, and come interact. I try to keep it loose, try to have a good time, but I've the last few weeks have been a little bit more serious with everything going on. But you can find me there, and obviously you can find all of my work on Orlando Pinstripe Post, as well as the Do You Believe in Magic podcast with myself, Aaron Goldstone, and Will Ogburn, which I'm sure we're going to have something coming up here pretty soon. Kind of touch base with all of us, see how we're handling everything, and talk some Magic basketball.
Absolutely. If you're listening to me, you should be listening to Zach and his crew as well. We all between all of us, you will have every aspect of the Orlando Magic covered. And Aaron is already starting on his draft prospect profiles. Definitely give a look at those. He does a really good job with those as well. But I want to thank everyone who popped in during the live stream. I want to thank everyone who may be listening on Locked On Magic. Hopefully we'll be able to do another live stream and talk more Magic basketball in the very near future. But until then, Zach, thanks for jumping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Phil. It was fun. Cody Taylor, our good friend, if you're watching, sorry I didn't break the over on the amount of beers drank during the live simulcast here, but we're enjoying it. We're having fun.
Well, thanks everyone for watching live or listening wherever you're listening to. Again, apologize for any technical difficulties. Hopefully we'll do this again, and keep it here on Locked On Live for more streams and more stuff from the Locked On Podcast Network, and check us out wherever you download podcasts today. Have a good one, everyone. Go Magic.